Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Mick Raich. I'm the president of Vachette Pathology and Stark Medical Auditing. And I've got some interesting thoughts for you today, some interesting updates. It's been a busy week. We did a great webinar for a bunch of our practices and for 148 people last week on COVID and some of the challenges facing labs and pathology groups. This week we have an update we're going to do with the DARK report and do a webinar there with some of the changes we're seeing for their side. And then we also have a webinar we're doing in conjunction with CollectRx, which is a firm which helps collect out-of-network payments, which a lot of labs are using right now because it's a very interesting time. So let's jump into some of these changes we see. First and foremost, beginning July 1st of 2021, United Healthcare will only cover outpatient diagnostic lab services for commercial members when being performed by a designated diagnostic provider. That means you have to go online and sign up to be a provider. The quality status the insurance is asking labs, this is a new quality status the insurance is asking labs to meet in an effort to tighten its network. In order to participate, in-network labs must meet certain criteria for quality and efficiency and complete a survey by February 28th. That's next Sunday. So what this is another play by United Healthcare to force work in network. And they're going to work hard on that. And this is another way for them to narrow that network. Interesting that they're doing this at a time when people are struggling to get COVID testing done, but it's happening. So let's face it. Next thing I want to talk about, a couple of great audit findings. First, we had an audit where we found Medicaid was dropping off for this one client. And what we found is that their biller never re-credentialed Medicaid. The Medicaid, state Medicaid in that area was sending an email out to the biller at an old address. No one saw it. So the Medicaid just started dropping off, and then it ended. And then they have to go through the whole process to re-credential that practice to get paid for Medicaid. Big mistake. We're seeing another one we saw. We identified a pathology group where $80,000 worth of pap smear charges from 2020 were missed, and they were never ever processed. And one of the problems we're seeing, and I spoke about this last June and July, is that we're going to see some of these issues from the billing companies because with COVID, they had to lay off people. And then now, with unemployment being as rich as it is, they can't hire people back. I've talked to a couple billers where they go to hire people and the people are making $900 a week take home by being on unemployment. And a biller can't hire the people back that they laid off. So we're kind of in a catch-22 there. A lot of billers are still struggling. It's not pretty. Talking about the government, let's talk about COVID in the government. In December, we had a $900 billion package that passed to help for COVID testing. The proposed package now in the House and Senate is $1.9 trillion with 800 amendments to this. Come on, people. COVID testing isn't going away. We're continuing to push COVID testing. And I think if you look at it, they're even proposing COVID testing for domestic travel. So can you imagine when you go to the airport and you have a lab test and then you go through clear or go through pre-check and then get on a plane? And if we look at what's going on, it's the narrative that's driving all this, all the different variants. DARK report had something this week about, if your lab can track all the variants, that they want the data because there's some interesting things with the data there. I mean, come on, it's a virus. It's an RNA virus. It's going to mutate. So we have all these different variants taking place now, and we're just going to test for all those. It's not changing. It's not going away. Last year in Google, some interesting Google facts. There are 40,000 Google searches a second. 76% of all searches on the internet go through Google. The number one search in news last year was coronavirus. The number one search overall was coronavirus. Twitter, if you look at the hashtag there, the number one hashtag was COVID-19. The number two, by the way, was Tiger King. Okay, so there is hope for us. Let's keep moving on down here. Another thing we're noticing with the billing changes due to COVID is Medicaid's growing in many states. Medicaid grew 4 million members through July through December of last year. So this tells us that 1% of the American, if you look at over 1% of America signed up for Medicaid, and that tells you how dour things are in the employment world. Not only is unemployment driving some things, but a lot of businesses aren't able to make it through coronavirus despite all the PPP and the provider packages that are out there. They're just failing. The rumor right now is 1 in 5 restaurants in the state of Michigan will fail. Of course, we have some very unique rules. It's funny, I can go 30 miles away and eat at any restaurant doing anything I want in Ohio, and yet if I go in Michigan, they're still sitting at 25%. So the rules are still arbitrary, still being made up by people trying to find their significance. We're not done with it yet. Another thing that's happened when it comes down to the overall concept of billing and COVID is number of self-pay patients. The unemployment, the U6 unemployment, which is a true unemployment, by the way. It's people that are looking for unemployment, and even the people that gave up looking for unemployment. Last January, that was 7.7%. So that's a true unemployment. And then this year it's 12%. Not a good number. We're still not there. I think we're still incentivizing people with a lot of unemployment. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of unemployment that's actually necessary because the businesses went out of business. It's very, very sad. So some other things I want to talk to you about is there's some things like, how does it all end? How does COVID testing end, and what's the end game there? Well, the first thing you got to look at is the concept of, as long as it pays good money, it's going to continue to be popular and be used. Does Medicare come out and change COVID testing pricing come July, and in their proposed fee schedule? That could be one way. The second way is, do we get a home test? I know they're looking at 600. I think there was 600 million home test kits that were trying to develop this process to test people at home. The good news is, if you look at certain places, like the positivity for COVID testing went from 10 or 11% down to 3%. So the people getting tested are showing up with less COVID positive. Now, who knows if they'll have to test for the next variant that way. So the question is, when does the money run out for COVID testing, and how does that affect everything? And then you got to look at who benefits from all this. Interesting stat I heard was HCA, the biggest hospital corporation in America right now, own a large number of hospitals. They came out with their report from last year and said they made 10% more in 2020 than they did in 2019 with 5% less admissions. So their price per admission was up 10%. And this goes on, this is probably tacked on to the 20% boost from COVID. ICD-10. If you're diagnosed with COVID, you do get a boost. So there's some things there that are taking place. Now let's look at the mysteries going forward. Here's what we don't know. Our insurance is paying for COVID correctly. Some are, some aren't. We're seeing all kinds of things. We have 43 labs now we work with, along with our about 80 pathology groups, and we're seeing some very interesting things there. What are the options if your insurance doesn't pay? How do you handle that? How do you go after them? What are the issues with denials for COVID payments? And what we're seeing in the lab world is people don't even have time to work denials. They're just trying to get front end stuff out. They have COVID tests from October. They're still trying to get entered into their system. And then what about screening tests? The government has this initiative to have everyone tested for COVID all the time, but they also don't pay for it. The government will not pay you to test every employee in your employ once a month. They won't. Unless it's medically necessary and you have a physician order, that test isn't going to get paid. So we're looking at all these relationships where physicians and labs are trying to work together to make sure that there's a reasoning behind that test. And screening tests are going to be interesting. Same with the collection fee. There is a $25 collection fee, $25.63 or something like that Medicare pays for collecting the COVID test. And there's a lot of gray area on that. Who can bill that and exactly how that gets paid and what are the rules behind that? We're hoping there'll be some new FAQs that come out here pretty soon that answer some of these. And maybe in this 800 amendment, $1.9 trillion bill that's going to be 12 inches thick, maybe there'll be some answers in there. Here's what we do know. We found the basic tenets of business still work. You have to audit what you do. You have to stay on top of what you do. Charge capture is still important. It's a very, very busy time for us. And I'm sure it's a busy time for everyone out there. I think we need to keep driving this inertia behind all this change to make sure, what's the next narrative? How do we handle that? How do we handle the next round of COVID testing? If you have questions, please reach out to us. The webinar we gave last week is on our website. If you want a link, we'll put it right down here at the bottom, so you can go ahead and just click on it, and that'll give you some insights there. If you have any other questions, feel free to call us. Again, I'm Mick Raich. I'm the president of Vachette Pathology and Stark Medical Auditing. I look forward to chatting with you. Stay safe. Bye-bye.